The silence in a small town is rarely a peaceful thing once a tragedy has taken root. For weeks, the air in this tight-knit Nova Scotia community has been thick, heavy with a kind of speculation that poisons the usual neighborly wave and the casual morning greeting. People are talking, but they're doing it behind closed doors, their voices lowered as they dissect every possible theory on the local online forums. News crews have become a permanent fixture, their cameras circling the neighborhood like vultures, yet they rarely come away with anything more than the same grainy photos of two smiling faces. Lilly and Jack Sullivan. They vanish without a trace, leaving behind a void that no amount of community vigils or prayer circles can seem to fill. And through the center of the storm walks one man, Daniel Martel, the figure that heart an eerie, unshakable question. Where are the children? While the public waited in a state of mounting frustration, feeling as though the trail was growing cold, the RCMP was quietly, methodically at work. Behind the scenes, away from the glare of the media, detectives were building something monumental. They were constructing a timeline, a precise digital and physical reconstruction of Daniel Martel's every move in the lead-up to the disappearance of Lilly and Jack. This wasn't just guesswork. It was a forensic masterpiece. They tracked his phone signals as they bounced from tower to tower across the rural landscape. They pulled every available scrap of surveillance footage from traffic cameras, gas station monitors, and grocery store parking lots. They interviewed witnesses who hadn't yet dared to go public, gathering the small, mundane breadcrumbs that most people would ignore. Every detail mattered. Every second was a potential clue. And now, that painstaking work has finally paid off. The RCMP has confirmed it. They have the map. We finally know where Daniel Martel was during those crucial hours. We know who he spoke to, what he bought, and the last place he was seen before the world as the Sullivan family knew it ended. But as the light is shed on his movements, the darkness only seems to grow more profound, because tucked inside that day's events lies a gap. It is a black hole in time, a window of exactly 45 minutes that remains completely unaccounted for. These are not just 45 minutes of a man being out of sight. These are 45 minutes that investigators believe hold the absolute key to this entire case. It is a missing window so crucial that it could reveal a shocking act of violence, a secret meeting with an unknown accomplice, or the exact moment the children were spirited away. If that gap is ever filled, the mystery breaks wide open. According to the official RCMP records, that fateful day began with a deceptive sense of normalcy at 6:42 a.m. Martel's phone pinged off a cell tower near the Sullivan residence. At first glance, it was a routine signal, just another ordinary morning in rural Nova Scotia. He was where he was supposed to be. By 8:17 a.m., the digital trail turned into a visual one. Martel appeared on the CCTV of a local convenience store, stepping inside to pick up a coffee. Witnesses who were there, people just grabbing their own morning fuel, recalled him being alone. He moved calmly, showing no signs of agitation or panic. He wore a dark hoodie pulled up over his head, a common enough sight in the crisp morning air, but a detail that would later be viewed through a much more sinister lens. There was nothing in his demeanor to suggest that anything was about to go terribly wrong. Yet, these ordinary movements, the coffee, the quiet walk through the aisles, were the prologue to a nightmare. As he stepped back out into the morning light, the clock began to tick toward a series of contradictions that would eventually lead the police to the edge of McPherson's lake. The illusion of a normal day began to fracture just after 10 a.m., 2 hours after his coffee run. At precisely 10:04 a.m., Daniel Martel's vehicle was captured by a traffic camera. He was heading east along Route 316, a main artery through the region. When later questioned by the RCMP, Martel was ready with an explanation. He told investigators he was simply running an errand, driving to a neighboring town to pick up supplies from a hardware store. It was a plausible story, the kind of mundane task that fills a Saturday morning. However, when detectives cross-referenced his statement with the evidence, the story fell apart. The traffic footage and subsequent records from the hardware store showed one critical, chilling detail. He never arrived. Something, or perhaps someone, had pulled him off his expected route. He had veered away from the public eye and into the shadows of the backcountry. The next confirmed location for Martel doesn't occur until 12:15 p.m., when his phone briefly connected to a cell tower near McPherson's lake. This isn't a place you visit by accident. It is a remote, isolated location, situated about 3 kilometers from a dense, tangled wooded trail. It is a kind of place known only to locals, a spot accessible only by a narrow, rutted dirt path. It is where the RCMP would later focus their most intense efforts, deploying forensic teams and cadaver dogs to comb through the undergrowth. Then, the digital world went silent. From 12:15 p.m. onwards, there is no phone activity, no outgoing calls of friends, no incoming texts, no data usage that would allow a tower to track his position. For nearly an hour, Daniel Martel disappeared from the map entirely. He entered a void where the answers to Lilly and Jack's disappearance likely lie hidden. But while his phone was silent, the woods were not. Around 12:40 p.m., 2 local residents reported a sighting that would change the trajectory of the investigation. They told the RCMP they saw a man matching Martel's description perfectly near the edge of the tree line at McPherson's lake. On the surface, it's just a sighting, but the timing creates a devastating contradiction. Martel told police that by 12:40 p.m., he was already back at the Sullivan home, miles away from the lake. His own statement and the eyewitness accounts do not line up. This is a discrepancy that investigators say cannot be ignored, especially given the pedigree of one of the witnesses. A retired park ranger, a man intimately familiar with the sounds and rhythms of those woods, gave a statement that is truly chilling. He didn't just see a man, he heard something. He recalled the faint, unmistakable sound of children's voices drifting from the dense tree line. He couldn't see through the thick brush, but he described hearing laughter, whispers, and the sound of small footsteps moving through the dry leaves. While the RCMP has been hesitant to publicly confirm the presence of the children at the lake that day, sources close to the official files say the report is there in black and white. It is logged, preserved, and treated as a cornerstone of the reconstruction. It raises a haunting, heartbreaking question. If Martel was telling the truth about being back at the Sullivan home, who were the children in the woods? And if he was lying, was that the moment everything changed? Was that the moment Lilly and Jack vanished into the unknown? The physical evidence found during the search of the area only deepened the dread. Investigators uncovered several items, but one stood out, a small, frayed piece of pink fabric. It was a delicate color, one that matched the favorite blanket Lilly was known to carry everywhere she went. As forensic tests continue to process that scrap of cloth, the pressure on Martel's timeline reaches a breaking point. Why was this remote lake never mentioned in his initial statement? Why did his story omit a location that appears to be the last place anyone heard the voices of children? The silence of his phone during this window, from 12:15 p.m. to 1:02 p.m., suggests a deliberate attempt to stay off the grid. It is a 45-minute window where evidence could have been hidden, where a meeting could have taken place, or where the children could have been moved forever. The most haunting element of any criminal investigation isn't always what the police find. Often, it is what is missing. In the case of Daniel Martel and the vanished Sullivan children, that missing piece is a physical and digital void that lasts exactly 47 minutes. From 12:15 p.m. to 1:02 p.m., the timeline goes completely, terrifyingly dark. There is nothing. No phone activity to track. No pings off local towers. No sightings by neighbors. No store receipts. And no digital traces of any kind. For nearly 3/4 an hour, Daniel Martel's movements are blank space on a map, a void in the story that investigators believe holds the absolute key to understanding the fate of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. It is within this specific gap that theories begin to take a chilling shape. These aren't just guesses. They are the frameworks investigators use to try and peer into the darkness. The first is what experts call the concealment theory. In this scenario, investigators consider the very real possibility that during this 47-minute window, Martel wasn't just driving, he was working. This is a period long enough for a person familiar with the rural terrain of Nova Scotia to hide physical evidence or move the children to a secondary, more secluded location. A brief period of total disappearance like this is a predator's greatest asset. It allows for the manipulation of the environment, a chance to scrub a scene or stash an item, leaving little to no trace behind for forensic teams to find weeks later. Then, there is the meeting theory. This line of thought suggests that Martel didn't act alone. It posits that he may have used this digital blackout to meet with a third party, someone who could be directly involved in the disappearance or who assisted in the logistics of the day. This theory opens a Pandora's box of questions for the community. Did others have knowledge of what was happening? Was there a coordinated effort to ensure the children vanished? If Martel met someone during those 47 minutes, it explains why his phone was silent. He didn't need to call or text if the person was standing right in front of him in the shadow of the trees near McPherson's lake. Finally, we have the staging theory. This is perhaps the most calculated possibility. It suggests that Martel may have used this time to return to the Sullivan home prematurely, to alter the scene. The goal would be to make it appear as though the children were still there, or that nothing out of the ordinary had occurred yet, effectively delaying the moment the alarm was raised. If he could manipulate the timeline at the house, he could buy himself hours of a head start before the RCMP even knew a crime had been committed. This would explain the glaring discrepancies between his official statements and the accounts of the witnesses at the lake. It explains why the evidence found later, like the scrap of pink fabric, doesn't align with the ordinary day Martel described to detectives. Each of these theories adds a new layer of horror to the case. Was it a single impulsive act, or a series of multiple, coordinated actions? Did someone else play a role? Or was this a solitary mission carried out by a man who knew exactly how to vanish? Until the RCMP can fill this gap of hard evidence, the truth remains tantalizingly out of reach, hanging over the Nova Scotia coast like a heavy fog. This 47-minute stretch isn't just a lapse in memory. It is the darkest and most critical stretch of the entire timeline. It is a moment where the lives of two innocent children diverged from the world they knew and disappeared into a mystery that is yet to be solved. Every second of that silence is a second where Lilly and Jack were losing their chance to be found. At 1:03 p.m., the digital silence finally breaks. After nearly an hour of being completely off the grid, Daniel Martel's phone suddenly comes back online. The first signal pings off a tower near the Sullivan home. He is back in the immediate area where the children lived, but the man who returns to the grid does not seem to be the same calm individual seen earlier at the convenience store. By 1:12 p.m., we no longer have to rely on cell pings. We have visual evidence. A neighbor's security camera captures Martel outside the residence, and the footage is deeply unsettling to anyone who knows the gravity of what was happening. In the video, Martel is seen pacing. He moves back and forth in the driveway with a restless, frantic energy. He has a cigarette in his hand, taking quick, sharp drags as he glances repeatedly toward the road. It isn't the behavior of a man settling in for a quiet afternoon. He looks as if he is waiting for someone, or perhaps watching for the first sign of flashing blue and red lights. Every movement captured on that grainy footage is tense and measured. While a casual observer might have seen a man just having a smoke, in the context of the missing 47 minutes, these moments are chilling. He is a man on the edge, standing in the very driveway where Lilly and Jack should have been playing. The timeline takes another turn at 1:40 p.m. This is when the children's mother, Malia Brooks Murray, is seen leaving the home in a separate vehicle. This brief footage is the last confirmed sighting of anyone associated with the household before the RCMP timeline goes dark for a second time. It is a final piece of verified visual evidence. After Malia drives away, a heavy, suffocating silence takes over the record. The chain of events becomes a blurred mess of shadows. There are no more cameras to catch a stray movement, no more phone pings to map a route, and no more witnesses to provide a frantic account of voices in the woods. There is only a void where the answers should be. This silence, when combined with the earlier gaps at the lake and the blatant contradictions in Martel's story, has left the public and investigators grappling with a haunting realization. The window for a rescue was closing during those very hours. What truly occurred during that afternoon? The RCMP has spent months meticulously mapping every ping and every sighting. Yet the black hole of those missing minutes continues to loom over the case. It is a haunting void that refuses to be filled. The reconstruction is nearly complete. But without that one missing piece, the entire structure of the case remains unstable. The community is left asking the same questions over and over. Does the RCMP already have enough evidence to charge Daniel Martel? Are they simply holding back, playing a high-stakes game of cat and mouse while they wait for one final piece of forensic proof to close the loop? Or is the truth so well hidden in those 47 minutes that it may never surface? Every new revelation, every leaked detail from the official files, only serves to deepen the mystery. The pink fabric, the whispers in the brush, the nervous pacing in the driveway, they all point to a conclusion that no one wants to face. Until those minutes are accounted for, the truth stays just out of reach, and the ghosts of Lilly and Jack Sullivan continue to haunt the woods of Nova Scotia. The investigation isn't just looking for children anymore. It is looking for seconds and minutes that were stolen from them. As the digital timeline reaches its limit, the investigation shifts from the airwaves to the Earth itself. The focus returns, with an almost obsessive intensity, to the area surrounding McPherson's Lake. This isn't just a scenic spot in the Nova Scotia wilderness. It has become a sprawling, outdoor laboratory for the RCMP's Forensic Identification Services. When the digital trail went cold at 12:15 p.m., the physical trail became the only hope for Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Investigators knew that if Daniel Martel had spent his missing 47 minutes here, he would have left something behind. No matter how careful a person is, nature is a witness that never forgets a footstep or a broken branch. The search of the wooded trail near the lake was anything but a standard walkthrough. It was an exhaustive, inch-by-inch grid search. Forensic teams, dressed in white suits that contrasted sharply against the dark browns and greens of the brush, moved with a surgical slowness. They weren't just looking for the children. They were looking for microscopic traces of their presence. They utilized cadaver dogs, canines trained to detect a faint scent of human remains even through layers of soil or water, and ground-penetrating radar to scan for any disturbances in the earth that might suggest a recent burial or a hidden cache of evidence. The isolation of the lake, which Martel failed to mention in his initial accounts, became the focal point of a massive logistical operation. It was during this high-stakes search that the most heartbreaking discovery was made. That small, frayed piece of pink fabric. To the naked eye, it might have looked like common litter, but to the investigators who had studied the children's lives, it was a siren. Lilly Sullivan's favorite blanket was more than just a comfort item. It was an extension of her. The discovery of a matching fabric in a place Martel claimed he never visited created a massive hole in his defense. This piece of evidence serves as a physical bridge between the suspect and the location of the black hole in time. Forensic scientists have since been working around the clock, using advanced spectrometry and fiber analysis to prove beyond a mathematical certainty that the fabric originated from the Sullivan household. But the lake held more than just fabric. Every tire track in the mud and every scuff mark on the trees was documented. Investigators began to look at the concealment theory through a very specific lens. If Martel was there, what was he doing? The lake is deep, and the surrounding woods are dense enough to swallow a secret for decades. This is why the RCMP's dive teams were seen plunging into the cold, murky waters of McPherson's Lake. They searched the silt and the underwater vegetation, looking for anything, a phone, a set of keys, or the children themselves, that might have been discarded in a moment of panic. The water, much like the missing 47 minutes of phone data, is a silent witness that investigators are determined to make speak. As these forensic details leaked out to the public, the pressure on the Sullivan family and on Daniel Martel reached a fever pitch. The discrepancy between Martel's story and the physical reality of the lake's search has created a narrative of deception. Why omit the lake? If he was simply taking a drive to clear his head, why not be honest about the route? The forensic hunt suggests that the omission wasn't a lapse in memory, but a calculated choice. Every day that the lab results take to process is a day of agony for the community. But for the RCMP, it is a period of building an airtight case. They are no longer just looking for children. They are building a mountain of evidence that will ensure that when charges are finally laid, there is no room for reasonable doubt. The secrets of McPherson's Lake are slowly being pulled from the shadows, one fiber and one footprint at a time. We have reached the end of the confirmed timeline, but we are nowhere near the end of the story. The reconstruction of Daniel Martel's final hours before the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan is a masterpiece of modern investigation, yet remains haunted by its own incompleteness. We have mapped every ping, every CCTV frame, and every nervous glance in the driveway. We have seen the calm man buying coffee, and the frantic man pacing near the Sullivan home. We have heard the chilling reports of children's laughter echoing through the trees at McPherson's lake, a sound that, if the witness is correct, may have been the last time the Sullivan children were heard by anyone other than their captor. Despite the overwhelming amount of data, that 47-minute black hole remains the center of gravity for this entire case. It is the window where the world changed. Everything before 12:15 p.m. is the setup. Everything after 1:02 p.m. is the aftermath. The truth lives in the gap. The question that now looms over Nova Scotia isn't just what happened, but what happens next? Does the RCMP already have the smoking gun? In many high-profile disappearances, investigators choose to withhold the most damning piece of evidence. They hold back information to ensure that any future confession or witness statement can be verified with absolute certainty. They are playing a long game, meticulously waiting for the final piece of the puzzle to snap into place. The theories we have explored, concealment, meeting, and staging, aren't mutually exclusive. It is entirely possible that the missing window of time involved elements of all three. Perhaps Martel met someone at the lake to hand off the children before returning to the Sullivan home to stage a scene of normalcy. Perhaps he acted alone and spent those 47 minutes frantically trying to cover his tracks in the woods. Whatever the reality, the weight of the evidence is clearly leaning in one direction. The discrepancy between his phone pings, the eyewitness accounts from the retired park ranger, and his own contradictory statements has painted a picture of a man who is running out of places to hide. The community of this small Nova Scotia town remains in a state of suspended animation. The whispers behind closed doors have turned into a collective demand for justice.